Hello, my name is Ilona, and in this video I first want to start with a summary of the last two Dutch videos I've made. I was talking about a video between Gene Decode and Nicholas Benjamin. One video was from the 28th of July 2021 about the timelines. The other video was from the 19th of April 2022. So it's a very recent video. And the first one was really about timelines and how fluid timelines are. And it's very, very interesting. I really advise to watch it if you are interested in the timelines. And the focus is that timelines can change and timelines are fluid, which is very interesting. So all the possibilities you can make, all the choices you can make, probably even smaller choices, there are all timelines for that. So that's very interesting. And second of all, the timeline is linked to your frequency. So if you raise your frequency, then you will get in a better timeline. So it's so important now for us all to focus on our frequency, on our energy. If something comes up, if we're scared, frightened, sad, angry, frustration, if we feel all those feelings, we really need to embrace that, open ourselves up, feel through it, transform it, so we can really embrace our energies and start manifesting what we truly want. We need to start focusing on what we want in our timeline. So if you just focus on the negative things, if you're always, if something comes up and you're triggered again and you don't work on your triggers, you don't change things in your energy, then you will end up in a timeline that will resonate with that. That's why it's so important that we step into our authority now, take responsibility for our energies. And that's really the part that we have to do in the Great Awakening. And it's so, so important. Gene Decode, in his video of July 2021, he talks about the Mandela effect, that certain things that happen in certain timelines hasn't happened in another timeline. He talks about Tataria, which is very interesting. He says that in his timeline, or the things that he has, apparently he has kind of letters from his family from centuries ago, I think, or I'm not sure how long it goes back, but he's like, if I look along my family line, there is no mud flood, which happened in Tataria. The dark energies wanted to destroy all the knowledge of Tataria, of the free energy, so they created a mud flood. And that's why you have all these beautiful buildings and things don't match up. So you think that they're just they were created actually for a certain energy, certain frequency for the free energy, but they look like they're just symbolic when there's so much more to it. And it's very interesting. So in his timeline, that never existed, but it now is sort of kind of popping up in this timeline. I see a lot of more information, and I think it is fluid. You kind of can insert things in timelines. So I do believe that more and more information about Tataria will come up, and it's just fascinating to see, and it kind of resonates with me. So see if it resonates with you. You can find a lot of information about Tataria and about the incredible energies they worked with then, the free energy, and I do believe that will be reintroduced. I do believe that dark energies are working with free energy, and I'm sure the white hats, certain parts of them as well, are working, the military, working with free energy already. So that's interesting. So it has, like I said, it's fluid. Timelines can change, you can alter them, and it completely depends on your frequency. So you're not, how do you say this? You're not depending on someone else. So if you're surrounded with people who are quite negative or are just not seeing the things you see, or just look at things, have a different perspective, that in a way means that at a certain point in time you will have a different timeline. Because Gene was talking about a certain time, like a window in time, where things kind of move through each other. So right now, I do believe that we're mixed in with all kinds of timelines. That's why you have people that are extremely negative, that really believe that the great reset is going to be pushed through. Then of course you have people, well, like me. I don't believe that they're actually going to get that far anymore. I believe that the entire narrative has collapsed. and of course anything in between. And so I do believe that, I think if I'm not mistaken, Gene actually mentioned, was a very interesting question Nicholas asked about why are these negative people still around? And it's so they have an opportunity to change their timeline, but the window is closing. So I do believe at a certain point we really are going to change timelines, and people will have different outcomes, different perspectives, and we'll see different realities. So I truly believe that. But right now everything is kind of mixed through. So people still have the opportunity to grow or have another choice, but it's up to them. And ultimately I believe there will be, I'm not sure when or how, but there will be a splitting of timelines and changing, and well, who is going to end up where will depend on their frequency. In this video, at least the most recent video, Gene actually talks about the narrative collapsing, and he mentioned, which I truly believe, that if the dark energies had that much power, they would have taken over by now. They would have taken over control by now. Everything is kind of falling apart. That thing that happened, you know, that's been running around for 2 years now. So much information is coming out. More and more you'll see in the normal media. Most of it is still in the alternative media. But you can just see people talking about the damage from the wasp sting. More and more things are coming out. Athletes dropping like flies. We have the narrative, of course, the collapse of the banking system. We're kind of waiting. But of course, Russia is not part of the SWIFT system anymore. And the ruble is now backed by gold. If the dark energies were truly in control, that could have never happened. We have Elon Musk with Twitter going on. All those things could have never happened if the dark energies still had the control they once had. They would have taken care of people by now if they spoke up, if information would have gotten out. They would have just made sure it would have disappeared. Those people would have disappeared. So they don't have that control anymore. Gene also mentioned that the Whiteheads have taken over most of the very destructive weapons they had. Of course, Russia infiltrated Ukraine, or got there for the biolabs. They were working on a bioweapon that was specifically designed for certain DNA, so certain kind of people they wanted to take out. They've taken care of that. That doesn't mean that they're still not capable of creating damage. I do believe a lot of false flags are people that are MK Ultra. So that means that they're under a certain mind control, and that they suddenly get from their handlers a certain command, and they just kind of go off the rails and do things that can damage a lot of people, that can create fear. We've of course had in New York, what was I think last week, things were happening there. I think we will see more and more of those things, that they'll try to create fear that way. It's still a certain control. I've also looked again at Shanghai. I got information from someone who's reacted to my video that said, well, I have a friend living there right now and she cannot leave the house. They barely have any food. It's a disastrous situation. To me, a lot of the videos that were coming out didn't feel right to me. So I mentioned in my last video about Shanghai that I do believe things are changing there, but not everything we see is true. But certain parts are. Gene also mentioned it, that the dark energies are still trying to keep control there. Of course, they have a stronghold there in China. They have that system they want everywhere, you know, the system with that ID that everything is connected and everyone needs their wasp stings and things like that. Well, they've already rolled that out in China. That means that they have a very strong hold over the people of China, because you need a certain frequency in a certain area to accept that. I already mentioned that in France and in other countries like Germany, people have a certain energy. So things are happening there. So people will not go with something if it doesn't fit the energy. That doesn't mean that people deserve that, but it means that people are more compliant in certain areas, or more obedient to what is going on. It's just created that way. And in China, a lot of people are obedient. Otherwise, they couldn't have never rolled out that system to begin with. So I do believe that, I got that from the reading as well, that the dark is really trying to gain control. But Gene also mentioned that the white hats are working their way through China as well. Apparently a certain person was arrested, was the head of the CDC there, who was taking bribes from the companies that make tests. And in that part of Shanghai, apparently the restrictions were lifted, or there were less restrictions after that. So there, the white hats are taking control there as well, but it's not fully in control yet. So they can still roll out a lot of things. And like I've said, I do believe a lot of the videos that come out is not completely a true representation of what is going on, but there are things going on, and my heart goes out to all the people that are in that horrific situation. But they are, how do you say that, there are more and more protests are going on in China, and I think that's very important that people are truly waking up there as well, because it's necessary. People have to understand we have a free will, and our frequency is not only deciding our timelines, but also what's going to happen with us and with our area where we live as well. So if in China a lot of people remain in a very low frequency, there's not much ultimately the white hats can do. They can take away things like weapons and other things like that. But the people will have to stand up and stand in their authority and take their responsibility to create something new. That's why the dark energies need us. They cannot create. They don't have that ability anymore. They kind of disconnected from God, from the creator, so they cannot create. That's why they need us to create. That's why they brainwash us, so we will do their bidding. We will create their agenda. That's why they create this fear and the confusion, because then they can use our energies to create what they want. That's why they throw out all these things like, yeah, this idea is coming, or this digital idea. There's now in the fall, probably in Italy, they are going to roll out in Bologna this digital system. I actually, my card reading said that they're going to try to roll out to wake up people, but I don't think it's going to get that far. A lot of things can happen between now and the fall, but that's how they program. They're programming, so we will start to manifest things for them. So if we stop doing that, stop falling for their techniques, they're certainly going to lose their narrative. And like I said, they already are losing their narrative. So we really have to keep that in mind, that they're falling. And if we see that and start, they're falling apart, then that is what's going to be manifest, at least in your timeline. So I'd like to take a look at the energy globally now, what's going on. Let's see. We have the Queen of Swords, that's the card above. We have the Seven of Swords, that's the central card. We have the Queen of Cups in the past. We have the Page of Wands underneath the central card. And we have the Eight of Swords for the near future and the Four of Swords. Well, that's interesting. We have a lot of swords cards and some restrictive. So for the near future, even globally, I think people will be limited. Maybe something's going to happen. They're really going to push this Third World War agenda. I think we might be heading for the scare event, although I cannot put any, how do you say, the timeline on that. And I want to be very, very careful with that. But it will still feel restricted. More and more things will come out. Maybe a lot of people in a lot of countries feel restricted. Maybe they'll try to create a fear event, but everything kind of standing still. So maybe they'll try to roll out more things, maybe have to do with health or something else. I have a feeling they'll try to scare people again. And it has to do with certain people, especially dark energies, that do not want to take responsibility, do not want to face the fact that they're losing everything. So they try to hold on and think they might be able to get away with certain things. They're not, but that's in their head. They think they can still get away with certain things. That's why probably also in Shanghai, everything is so extreme there. And in other areas, they're still trying to hold on to that power that they had once. But it's up to the people of the world and just humanity to see what is true and what isn't true. We can really just push right through this and see, hey, this fits, or this is true, this isn't true, this is just a way to manipulate us. And it's up to us to decide where do we want to direct our energy. This is really about directing our energy. White hats are really also rolling out a lot of things, showing people what is going on. That's very important, to show people what is going on. You can tell them, but it's like that movie, like a show, don't tell. Well, that's really what's going on now. Show them so people will experience it, so people will understand and believe that this could happen to them as well. Especially with things in Shanghai coming out now, that scares people, but in a way it wakes people up. Like, wait, we really need to change things, to start doing things differently, because we don't want this. So that's very important. So we do get a time where things are restrictive still in the near future. And it's right now, you kind of feel the tension building. Things are moving and moving. You can just kind of feeling we are in this end game. I'm just going to get an extra card to clarify that. Yeah, the Tower. Things are going to fall apart. Like I said, I'm not going to mention a timeline, like this is going to take 1 month or a couple of weeks. I don't know. It could happen any day now, but it could take a lot longer. Like I've said before, time doesn't really exist, not in the spiritual world. And I do believe this is a multi-dimensional war. So we have to deal with other dimensions as well. And they have a different way of looking at time than we do. So I do believe that we're heading towards restriction, limitations. Things are standing still, maybe even some kind of health scare. And then things are going to completely fall apart. And that means the old foundation, so the old things, the old system will collapse, will fall. And it's necessary to rebuild, to start a completely new world, manifest from our hearts, from our connection with God, the true creator. We really need to get rid of all these old systems. Well, I'd like to leave it at this, and I hope to see you in another video. Bye!